No. Bonnie, I edited it. I left it in. You should have voiced over my accent. She's dead. No, that was the best part is the bad acting. Sabrina's dead. My Annie Waz. No, Sabrina, when you run into the room and you just give Bonnie a really awkward yeah.
Yes. I was down.
We didn't even do the like last week.
I have one of those.
It's our wireless. Now I'm going. See, I should have green.
You won't be able to see the screen.
Never mind, I don't need it. It's Maddie. I'm going now. I'm good. I'm good. You don't have to go. I'm trying not to use it.
I don't think I'll upset Oh yeah. Is your whole class in here?
We're gonna go big.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started, which means I'm going to leave, and then the bailiff, Mr. Adler, will introduce myself, and then we'll get the trial started. First of all, the process of getting here today is a very long process. It actually started last year during the school year, putting together the whole entire scenario, doing a lot of interviews. I couldn't even begin to count the number of hours that last year's forensics class put into it, this year's forensics class, and my law class. I believe we have around 28 pages of script, somewhere in that range. And our legal system is supposed to be a fast legal system, but my class and the forensics class definitely know that it's not a fast system because there's so many questions that you have to answer, and you don't have the answers. You have to be able to qualify and quantify and ask those questions. And I think that both groups have a little bit more respect for our legal system on how difficult it is to actually go through this. Because I know my business law class, we went to a trial and sat in on a little bit. And now that they've gone through this process, it's been challenging for them. It's also been challenging for the forensics class too. Always enjoyable for me each and every year that Mr. Chechel and I have done this. It's continued to get better and better when we've done this, and I'm pleased with where we're at right now. We'll have see where everybody's at today. It'll be very interesting as far as these kids put the information together with the presentations and the stuff that they have here. In the actual courthouse in Adams County, there is a metal detector that you would have to go through, and you would have to silence, and anything in the courtroom technology-wise is not allowed, so the same thing's going to happen in here. If you were to use your cell phone in a courtroom, you would be found in contempt of court, which would be jail time and or fine. In this courtroom, it will be a fine. Simple as that. So please keep your technology away when the trial is going on. Jury members, it's your decision to decide innocent or guilt. Food would not be allowed in my courtroom too, so you might as well eat that last nugget that you have there too. Other things, Mr. Cheshla?
I think we're good to go. It's a lot of work.
There's a lot of work too. We have the defense over here. This is the state of Nebraska versus Annie Waz. This is a murder trial. And the jury is going to deliberate at the end in Mrs. Anderson's room, and they have to find 100% guilt or 100% innocence. You will remain in there until all 13 of you can decide whether or not guilty or innocent. So you're going to have to use your... You can take notes, jury members, if you want to. A lot of times there's a court reporter that will take information, but we don't have one of those here. Bailiff, do you remember your instructions? We'll find out here in a second.
Yeah, we're going to find out.
All right, here we go. Okay, so judge is going to leave, and bailiff, you can begin.
All rise. The Honorable Sean Mulligan presiding.
Thank you. Will the jurors remain standing? Everyone else can be seated, please. First of all, I would like to say thank you to each and every juror for fulfilling their civic duty by serving on this jury. It is your service here today that makes our legal system the best in the world. I will now swear you in. Will each member of the jury please raise your right hand? Do you swear that you will render a true verdict according to the law as given by this court and the evidence submitted according to the rulings of this court, so help you God? Yes. Yes. Thank you. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen of the courtroom, we are here today for the case of Annie Waz versus the state of Nebraska. Annie is being charged with second-degree murder. Second-degree murder is defined as causing death of a person intentionally, but without premeditation. Second-degree murder is a Class 1B felony with a punishment of 20 years to life in prison. Based on the evidence presented today, the prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Annie killed Sabrina Bently. If you have any reasonable doubt whatsoever, you will find the defendant, Annie Waz, not guilty. Does the prosecution wish to offer an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may begin, Mr. Shapiro.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Nolan Shapiro of the prosecution team, and these four individuals with me today will be representing the state of Nebraska. As a prosecution, on behalf of the state, we have the burden of proof. This means we have to prove to you that Mrs. Annie Waz is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Today we will be proving to you that Annie Waz is the murderer of Sabrina Bently. The defense will lead you to believe another story explaining why Annie isn't the killer. But I want to tell you the facts that lead us to the conclusion that Annie took the life of Sabrina. On December 31st, 2018, Turner Bently decided to have a New Year's party involving 9 individuals at his house, 2014 in Forestville. He invited Jacob Plocky, Thomas Moeller, Bonnie Court, and Sabrina Miller. The other 4 people in attendance were workers: bartender Noah Sachs, caterer Hayden Russell, personal assistant Corey Kimberly, and the killer Annie Waz. At the party, Annie was working as a maid. On a night where it was supposed to be a fun party, ended up being a crime scene. Annie is known to have mood swings and mild depression, so she takes a prescribed drug called Prozac on a daily basis. This is the reason why she can't be trusted to make good decisions. That night she made some very poor decisions. She gave Sabrina too much insulin. One can only wonder why she would do that and give her too much insulin. Is it because she forgot to take her medicine? Is it because she was drinking? Or was it because she had a motive to kill Sabrina? She doesn't take her medicine and she isn't in the correct mindset and not all there to make good decisions. Members of the jury, all of the evidence points towards Annie being the murderer. Her fingerprints were on the insulin bottle, insulin box, and syringe, which would lead that she is the only one to do this to Sabrina. Annie's hair was found on the bed of Sabrina. Annie was the only person in the bedroom where Sabrina was found dead. And probably the most important piece of evidence is that her fingerprints and DNA were on the neck of Sabrina Bently, which would indicate that she strangled her. If she was the only person who went in the room and her fingerprints and DNA on the neck of Sabrina, she is the only one who could commit this crime. With hearing all the evidence, I don't know how anyone else can commit this crime. I know that you'll understand the point of view in which we are coming from and make the right decision. This killer should be behind bars without question. power to decide is yours, and we want you to use that power with responsibility. Thank you.
Does the defense wish to offer an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, you may move around.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, members of the jury. My name is Kaylee, and together with my colleagues, we are here to represent our defendant in this case, which is Annie Waz, who is innocent. Ms. Waz is a 22-year-old with no criminal record who has worked for Sabrina Bently as a maid for the last 6 years. And she is also to be proven by the prosecutor. Okay. Ms. Waz is a 22-year-old with no criminal record who has worked for Sabrina Bently for the last 6 years. She is also a certified nursing assistant. You have heard the prosecutor explain what he hopes will today wrongly accused of the murder crime of Sabrina Bently, a very serious murder. Annie is described by her friend as a good and thoughtful person throughout the trial. You will realize the facts that Ms. Waz has no clear motive, no guaranteed proof, not guilty. At the end of this trial, we are going to ask you to render a verdict of not guilty, the only appropriate verdict in such a case with multiple discrepancies regarding chain of custody and concealment of evidence.
Does the state wish to call anyone to the stand?
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Thane Wade to the stand.
Mr. Waite, would you please approach? The bailiff will swear you in.
Please remain standing, place your left hand on the Bible, and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You see.
Prosecution, you may start with your questions.
Your Honor, permission to approach.
You betcha.
Please state your name for the jury.
Thane Wade.
What's your occupation?
I'm a detective for the Hastings Police Department.
How long have you worked for the Hastings Police Department?
10 years.
Where were you on the date of January 1st, 2019?
I was at the Bently residence.
What time did you arrive at the scene?
I received a call 1 p.m. that reported there was a body at the Bently home. I arrived at the house at 1:15 p.m.
Who else was present when you arrived?
Detective Megan Coates and Detective Emma Ellerby, along with other detectives from the Hastings Police Department.
What did you discover upon arrival?
The body of Sabrina Bently.
Where did you discover the body of Sabrina Bently?
I first entered the Bently household, which led me to the entrance of room A, which appeared to be a dance floor. I then went to room B, which was a guest bedroom, and then I entered room C, which is where I discovered the body at.
What items were with the body? Did you find anything near her or on her?
A bottle of insulin, a plate with breakfast on it, and a tiara and a cup.
So where was the body located at?
On the bed.
How did it appear to you in your experience post her COD? Positive.
Appeared to be a strangulation.
What would lead you to believe that it was a strangulation?
The hand and fingerprint marks of bruises that were found around her neck.
Was there any evidence of Sabrina being sexually violated?
No, there was no sign of it.
Any evidence of a robbery?
No, there didn't appear to be a sign of robbery as all items were in their place.
Then what evidence did you collect at the crime scene?
Fingerprints, fibers, hair, footprints, and DNA samples from the fingerprint impressions on Sabrina's neck.
And to whom does the evidence point to?
Careful analysis of the evidence collected at the crime scene, we can safely say that the evidence points to Annie Waz.
How can you back up your claim? What does the evidence provide us?
Annie's fingerprints were found on the insulin bottle as well as the DNA found on Sabrina's neck.
If we go by the reports found in the evidence, who is more likely to have committed the murder of Sabrina?
Annie Waz.
As you investigated the crime scene, mainly in room C, what can you tell the jury about the crime?
He can testify that this crime was committed with intent.
Please explain further with intent.
The liquor found out that Annie gave Sabrina 5 times the amount of insulin.
What events took place as you and the CS-19 finished the investigation of the crime scene?
The team cleaned up and left the Bently's residence.
As you and your team finished processing the crime scene, did you or any member of the team discover any new evidence?
No, we did not.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Defense cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Wade, what did you observe about the body upon arriving at the crime scene?
Sabrina, the deceased, was on her back, and I could see bruises left from fingerprints around her neck.
So she was not on her chest face down, but face down, correct?
No, when I arrived, she was face up.
Did there appear to be any fight or struggle in the room?
No, it did not appear so.
At what time did you and the CSI team leave the crime scene?
Around 5 p.m.
You were there for about 4 hours?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution? Anything further with Mr. Wade? No. Okay. Well, Mr. Wade, you may take your seat. The state, prosecution, you may call your next witness.
The prosecution would like to call Cindy Shestak to stand, please.
Ms. Seshtak, can you please approach? Bailiff?
Please remain standing. Raise your left hand. Bible, raise your hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated.
Thank you. Prosecution, you may begin. You may.
Could you please state your name for the jury?
Sydney Shestak.
What's your occupation?
I'm a fingerprint examiner.
How long have you been in this profession?
6 years.
What is the degree of your education and where did you obtain it from?
My degree is in fingerprint analysis, and I obtained it from Boston University.
As a fingerprint examiner, what does your job entail?
I look at fingerprints found on evidence and the suspect's fingerprints and find similarities in the patterns.
Whose fingerprints were found in the room of Sabrina Bently, the victim, on the night of December 31st?
Annie Waz and Cabbage.
How do you know it's Annie's fingerprints?
I compared her prints with the prints found on the evidence and found many similarities in the patterns. So we found her prints on the syringe and on the insulin bottle and on the cup.
Can you show us how you can tell that they're hers?
So this is the syringe. These were the prints that we found on the syringe. And on the left you have Annie's right ring finger, and on the left is the fingerprint that we found on the syringe. And all of these are bifurcations that, as you can tell, are very similar in the way that they're going and where they're at in the split. And a bifurcation is where the pattern, it's one and then it splits into two. And then on the insulin bottle, we found similar ridge endings and also bifurcations. And the triangle down here that you can see, it's called a delta, and again, it's in both of the fingerprints, very similar. And then on the cup, we found also similarities, which again with the delta, which is the triangle in the middle, and her fingerprints were one of the only ones with a tendon arch.
Were there any other fingerprints that you found in the room of Sabrina?
No.
So in your professional opinion, this means Annie was in fact in the room with Sabrina Bently?
Yes.
So Sabrina took insulin. Whose fingerprints were found on the insulin bottle and syringe?
Annie's.
Whose fingerprint was found on the cup on the bedside table?
Annie's.
So no one else's fingerprints were found in the room of Sabrina, correct?
That would be correct.
Corey's fingerprints were not found.
No.
Bonnie's fingerprints were not found.
No.
Thomas's were not found.
No.
Turner's were not found.
No.
So this being said, the only fingerprints in the room were Amy's. Is this conclusion reasonable?
Yes.
No further questions.
Defense team, cross-examine.
Yes, Your Honor.
Bonnie stated that she was the one who found Sabrina when she went in her room and tried to wake her up. Can you explain how none of Bonnie's DNA or fingerprints were found in the room?
To leave a fingerprint, you have to have enough oils in the skin, so sometimes fingerprints don't always show up. So she may not have had enough oils on her skin to leave a print.
So is it possible to say that there could be other fingerprints other than Annie's that were also undetectable?
Possibly, yes.
Is it possible that someone else was in the room and touched certain items and areas and left no fingerprints because they were wearing some type of gloves?
Possibly, yes.
No further questions here on this?
Prosecution, Ms. Russell, any more questions for Ms. Eshbach? Okay, may you take your seat. State of Nebraska, you may call your next witness. Ms. Becker?
Remain standing, place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? Please be seated.
You need some time to get set up, Ms. Becker, or?
Well, I need mine.
Okay.
I was going to go through this before.
Prosecution, Smith, you may begin.
Please state your name clearly.
Becker,
What is your occupation?
I'm a medical examiner.
How long have you been a medical examiner?
5 years.
What is the date and time you received the body for the autopsy?
January 1st at 9 p.m.
What is the date and time the autopsy took place?
January 2nd at 11 a.m.
What time did what is the date and time the autopsy ended?
January 2nd at 4:30 p.m.
What did the autopsy show is the cause of death?
Strangulation.
What shows that the cause of death is strangulation?
There were burst blood vessels in the eye and lack of oxygen on the lungs and strangulation. Okay, so she had a lot of insulin in her system, which made her blood sugar low, and she could have been unconscious and not really know what was going on. And her coronary arteries had atherosclerotic synthesis. And that's like when there's buildup in your arteries, and that's kind of normal. It's just like a diet thing. And then in the lungs, or the outer part of the lungs, it was purple and it had frothy fluid in it, suggesting lack of blood flow.
What is the date and time of death?
Around 3 and 5 a.m. on January 1st.
How long did it take the person to die from strangulation?
3 minutes.
And what condition would you say the body is in to bring about this strangulation?
She, based on the validity, it proves that she died face down.
Can you please describe how the strangulation happened?
Okay. So, she'd be like unconscious laying on the bed, but I'm not gonna have to do that because it's always nasty. But then she like would have to grab like from this way, and that wouldn't break her hyoid bone. That's like right there, and it's a really thin bone that would break. She was strangled from the front, which makes only the 4 fingers on the front show instead of the face.
No further questions?
Defense?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, okay.
Ms. Becker, throughout the autopsy, did you come across any of the bruises on the body?
No, there are only bruises on the neck.
While during the examination, did you discover no bruising on the back side of the neck or from the hairline?
No, only on the anterior or front side of the neck.
Tell me, how is it possible to strangle someone without leaving bruising on the back of the neck?
If the perpetrator strangled the person from behind, then the victim would only have bruises on the front of the neck.
I don't understand. Don't you have to have pressure points on both sides to have a strangulation?
Yeah, there were pressure points up front here and their coronary arteries.
On both sides of front and back?
No, because if you press this hard enough, the nerve's not going to leave.
I please explain what prone and supine to her?
Prone means face down, laying on your stomach, and supine means laying face up.
In the autopsy report, you stated that the body had not been moved, correct?
That's incorrect.
I would like to remind you that you are under oath, and I would like to show you the submitted autopsy report. Could you please read the highlighted section?
Yeah. Okay. The body is well developed. Oh, just the highlighted. This suggests that the body was not moved from prone to supine position.
Was or was not?
No.
If she was strangled from behind and not moved, please explain why there is no markings on the back or the side of it.
Because she was strangled from behind and then she went and came and got the body, and when the police came, Bonnie had already flipped over the body to check if she was alive.
Yet she was face down, so who rolled her over? Why don't we have pictures of her face down? Did the first responder and CSI team do a poor job of processing the crime scene?
No, Bonnie rolled her over before the police had came to make sure she was alive.
No further questions, Your Honor?
Prosecution?
What would you like to call?
No further questions? Okay, Ms. Becker? Next witness?
I would like to call co-plasma tonight.
Place your right hand on the Bible, left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Clausen, do you need to get your presentation ready or anything? Coach, Mr. Scruti, you may begin. Thank you.
Please state your name for the jury.
Cole Clausen,
What is your occupation, Cole?
crime scene evidence analyst.
As I understand, there were fingerprints found on the neck of Sabrina, is that correct?
Bruises were found on the neck, clearly left by two hands with fingertips clearly shown.
Could you elaborate on whose fingerprints were found on the neck of Sabrina?
I analyzed the bruises left on the neck after strangulation, and they were analyzed to be Annie Waz.
Okay, I mean, I understand there's some pictures. Can you please show those pictures up here?
These are the prints that were left on the left, or from the left hand, and these are prints left from the right hand.
Mr. Sugar, make sure that the jury can see the pictures and not blocking their view.
So
It might be
these,
better if you move over here to this. I just want to make sure that the jury can see it.
so these fingerprints on Sabrina's neck, they can only be Annie's because why?
The bruises were unlikely Turner's fingerprints because his are much larger than Annie's fingers. Turner's fingerprints averaged up roughly an inch across the board, besides his pinkies, which were smaller than an inch, while Annie's measured roughly half an inch across the board, which would mean Turner's prints would be like twice as large as Annie's.
So what you're saying is Annie's fingerprints are the only ones who could be on the neck of Sabrina, is that
We
correct?
concluded Annie left the bruises on the victim's neck. That's correct.
I understand that the index measurement is smaller in width than what Annie's index width is. Can you explain why that would be?
Your fingers are rounded. This prevents contact near the edges of the finger. We can look at when suspects' prints are recorded. To be able to see the whole print, fingers are rolled side to side, ensuring the rounded edges come into contact with the paper. Using my own finger, I created this demonstration. I recorded the same finger's prints at 3 different levels of pressure. As you can see, even at the high amount of pressure on the left, it is still smaller than the overall width of my finger.
So what you're saying is if you put your finger here, it would only get this here, it wouldn't get the whole, wouldn't get
Would
the whole
not,
print?
yes, then.
Okay. So Based off the evidence that Annie was the only one who left evidence in the bedroom that night, it would only make sense that Annie's fingerprints would be the only person on Sabrina's neck, correct?
Based on the evidence left in the room.
No further questions.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Clarkson, you and your team took measurements from the fingerprints that are found on the body as well as Annie and Turner's, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We measured the width of the bruises found on the victim's neck and the width of both Annie and Turner's fingers.
And the prints that you found on the body were smaller than Annie's, yes?
That is correct.
Okay. So, according to the autopsy report, there were no bruises found on the back of Sabrina's neck, and she was strangled while laying prone on her bed. Could you please explain how it is possible for her to be strangled under such conditions without leaving any bruises on the back of her neck?
While I cannot say for certain why there are no bruises, sometimes bruises are left by the choking of victims, sometimes they are not. Perhaps the thumbs were placed on the back of the head near the occipital bone of the skull. It's right here. It's a very tough bone, and there's not a lot of skin on top of it, so bruises are caused by the breaking of blood vessels, but if there isn't enough blood vessels there, no bruises would show up because not enough blood is produced.
Okay. And we know that you took measurement of Annie and Turner's prints, but as far as I've seen, your team neglected to take measurements of anyone else's prints. Why is that?
These two suspects were the only two with the motive and opportunity to have committed this murder. Therefore, these were the only two that we invested limited time and resources into investigating.
We had questioned other people who were present at the scene. The only motive we could deduce for Annie was that it would help her to stay employed if Turner got the money from his parents' inheritance. So why wouldn't your team assume equal motive for people like Thomas or Noah who are in the same predicament as Annie and investigate them as well?
My job was only to analyze the print widths. The lack of evidence and witness testimony excluded the others.
So, you said that you invested limited time and resources into them to investigate. Were you not given the time necessary to have investigated everyone's prints if you had collected them?
Can you repeat the question?
You said that you invested limited time and resources into investigating the prints. Are you saying that you would not have had time to investigate everyone's prints if they had acquired everyone's?
I would have had time if it had been started from the beginning of the investigation, but my analyzing was done later in the investigation after other evidence had already been found and excluded others and pointed to one of these two suspects.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution? Ms. Fossey, you may proceed.
We would like to call Megan Coates to the stand.
Ms. Coates, come on up.
Please remain standing, put your left hand on the Bible, and raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Do you need time to set up? Please state your name, raise your hand. Megan Coates. And how old are you? 36. What do you do for a living? I'm a DNA technician at the U.S. State Department. How long have you been doing the DNA? 12. Do you consider yourself good at your job?
Yes, I attended FIU, Florida International University, and I participated in forensic DNA analysis and I testified in judgment court.
How did you know that the DNA was from a female?
The DNA pointed to female because when we are conceived, we receive one allele from our mom and one from our dad. Females only have XX chromosomes, and males have XY.
Can you explain to the jury what an allele is?
An allele is the abbreviation for the amylogenogen gene. Allele is a sex chromosome and it shows a chromosome.
Do two people have the same allele size?
and there's not been any human beings on the surface.
Is there a chance that your DNA match is incorrect?
There is a chance, however, it is a slim chance. As stated earlier, there's a 0.2% chance that that will happen.
What is the 0.1% chance in your report stand for?
The 0.1% chance is human error. In every science experiment, there's a 0.1% chance that human error occurs.
What does STR stand for?
STR stands for short-term memory.
How did you match that evidence together?
We collected evidence from Sabrina's neck of suspects and took the evidence to the state crime lab. We then performed tests on the DNA, and after receiving the results, we analyzed the DNA and compared it to the DNA of all the suspects and concluded that it was in fact Annie's.
Were you alone in this evidence finding process?
No, Joanna Maldonado was a colleague with the site.
Would Joanna ever contaminate evidence?
No, Joanna's a professional and very particular in her work.
Is there any doubt in your mind that Annie did in fact kill Sabrina Bently?
No, the DNA evidence suggests that it belongs to Annie, and the chance of it not being Annie's is not.
Thank you. No further questions.
Defense?
As the court likely already knows, Annie worked as the maid for Turner and Sabrina Bently, and as their maid, her job would include things like, for example, making sure that their room or their clothes are clean, right?
If she was a maid, I would assume so. Any of the DNA I analyzed, I am unaware of their occupations or duties.
So, if her job is to make sure that their home and clothes were clean, and she's worked for them for 6 years, then wouldn't it make sense so that her DNA may end up on the clothes and around the house she works in?
Her DNA could be on the clothes if she did the laundry, but would not appear on the necks because the maids don't touch people's necks.
Is there any chance that DNA could come in contact from someone's clothes onto a person's body?
It is likely, but the chance of it happening is not very high.
For an individual like Annie who has regular contact with Sabrina, how likely is it that her DNA is in the room?
It's very unlikely.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution? Ms. Coates? State may call its next witness. We'll word this as the prosecution. All right. Before we get started with the defense team here, we're going to take a 5-minute break. First of all, the jury, I'm going to allow the jury to leave the room to use the restroom, grab a drink of water, and then come back in. Jury members, I instruct you not to discuss this with each other as you leave the room. So if you would like to leave the room, get a drink of water, use the restroom, and then come back and take your seats. Once the jury has returned, I will allow everybody else to do the same thing also. Bathroom break real quickly, and then come back in and we'll start the second half of our trial. So the jury, you may exit. Again, please do not talk among each other what's going on in the trial. And when the jury returns, typically they take about a 10 or 15 minute break sometimes. Recess break. When they return, we'll allow you guys to leave. You may talk amongst yourself if you want to. You guys can talk. It doesn't matter. What's that?
Sean Morgan, presiding.
Y'all may be seated, please. Thank you again. This is the state of Nebraska versus Annie Waz. The prosecution has presented their information. Now the defense turn is up. It's now for the defense team to present. Defense team, you may call your first witness.
The defense would like to call Thomas Mueller to stand.
Mr. Mueller,
May I approach?
you may just let him get sworn in here first before.
Please remain standing, place your left hand on the Bible, and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated.
Do you need anything to sit up, Mr. Mueller, or are you okay? Go ahead. Mr. Bontrac, yeah?
Please state your name and occupation for the jury, please.
I'm Thomas Mueller, and I'm a financial advisor for Sabrina and Turner Bentley.
And before we go any further, we are being spread out to the world, so if we can talk louder if possible, some of us can do that.
What exactly do you do as a financial advisor?
I try to advise them on what they want to buy and the pros and cons of what they're spending.
So how long have you been financial advisor for Sabrina, or the Bentley siblings?
I've been employed by them for 7 years.
And what's Turner's financial standpoint? Like, how's he doing on money?
He's about $500,000 in debt.
So how does he spend his money?
He wastes a lot of it, just kind of throws it around.
Like, any examples? Like,
He spends a lot of money on parties, alcohol, and cars.
And how's she doing on money?
With the inheritance that she's receiving, she gets a lot
So
of
she's
money.
inheriting money from her parents?
Yes.
How much would you say?
Not for sure, but I know that it's maybe in the millions.
So if Sabrina were to die, who would inherit the rest of that money?
Turner would.
Do you know that Turner was upset with his sister because she was set to inherit most of the money and that he was in debt because of his poor spending habits?
He didn't tell me he was upset, but I figured he would.
So it's safe to say that their siblings do not have a good relationship.
Yes.
And where were you tonight on December 31st, night of murder?
I was at Turner's mansion for a New Year's Eve party.
And they live in the same house, Turner's, right?
Yes.
Could you please walk me through your night and tell me what you did?
So I arrived at the mansion around 10 p.m. and I walked in for a small talk with the rest of the guests for a few hours. And then at midnight, I noticed that Turner and Sabrina were in an argument. And I think they were arguing something about Sabrina kissing her ex, and Turner was upset about it. And then I went up to the bar with Turner and Jacob, and we were talking with Noah, the bartender. And Noah jokingly said that Turner could just kill Sabrina, and that solve his problems. And then Turner said that he'd been thinking about it, and then I left around 1.
So he just said, I thought about it in my head. Did you say he planned it out in his head? Like he just thought about it?
No, he just said that he just thought about it.
Nothing else was said in this conversation?
No.
And can you please describe the fight? Like how, was it violent or just
It was just more raised voices. There was no touching of the other partners, no hitting or pushing. It was just raised voices.
Okay, no further questions.
Ms. Mead, cross-examine.
Mr. Mueller, you are Turner and Sabrina's financial advisor, is that correct?
Yes.
And what is your relationship like?
It's mostly business, though my relationship with Turner is a little more friendly.
Am I correct with saying that Sabrina receives a large amount of money from her parents?
Yes.
So with Sabrina's death, who receives money?
Turner.
Is Annie an employee of Turner?
Yes. I believe she's the maid.
An employee for 6 years, am I correct?
Yes.
A valued and trusted employee?
Yes.
Based off your experience with Turner, could you foresee a valued employee like Annie receiving so much financial windfall?
Yeah, she could definitely get a lot of money from her.
No further questions, Your Honor?
Defense.
Defense would like to call Noah Sass, bartender, to
Please remain standing, place your left hand on the Bible, and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
May I approach you?
Yes, you may.
No. Please state your name and occupation, please.
My name is Noah Sass, and I'm a bartender.
And approximately how many parties have you worked at Turner Bentley?
About a half dozen or so.
How big are these parties?
Usually they're pretty big. I was surprised this was more of a small get-together with friends.
So like in the numbers, how big is it?
Usually about 200 or so.
200 people? Wow, that's a lot. I understand that you saw the fight between Turner and Sabrina. Can you explain what happened?
I didn't see or hear why or how it started, but I did see them arguing in a corner away from the other guests. They got pretty loud. Sabrina eventually stormed off and Turner just went back to the party.
And was Turner over the legal limit of alcohol?
He might have been, but I know Turner's not a lightweight in that area, if you know what I mean.
Was he drunk? Could you safely say he was drunk?
He was a little tipsy, yeah.
There's a difference between tipsy and drunk. Like, was he just feeling a little good, or was he like, you know?
He was pretty drunk.
Alright, pretty drunk. Alright, so after Sabrina went to bed, Turner came over to the bar and started talking to you and Jacob Plucky. Am I right?
Yes.
What was said during this conversation?
So Turner gave me and Plucky the spiel on his financial situation and struggles. He told us that he was almost completely out of money and he was in a lot of debt, but Sabrina had a large sum of money saved away. I made a joke that was something along the lines of, well, it's too bad she's not dead so you could just get some more cash. And he kind of murmured to himself, yeah, I guess it is. He kind of caught himself. He didn't say anything after that and then just excused himself from the conversation.
So you weren't serious about this joke you made?
No, I have a dark sense of humor, but it was more of just a lighthearted joke.
Do you think Turner could have been serious about the statement that he made?
He could have been, but also it could have just been something that slipped out because he was drunk.
Did you see where Turner went, like after he left the bar?
He went to the bathroom and then to bed.
And could you see, like, from his room to Sabrina's room?
No, I could not.
Couldn't see, so like he could leave and go there at any point?
I suppose so, yes.
Okay, nobody would see him?
No.
And where did you go after this?
I cleaned up the bar and went home.
All right, no further questions.
Ms. Figgins, cross-exam?
Yes. Who was the one person you did not see drink that night?
I did not see Annie drink at all that night.
Did you see Annie in the party area or anywhere around the house where you were working the bar?
She arrived exactly on time to the party. She darted in and out of a lot of the main rooms. Never was in one place for too long.
Did Annie seem normal or a bit odd?
She was a little bit skittish. She was hanging out near the bar for a little bit, and when I asked if she was okay, she basically jumped. She didn't expect me to ask for anything.
Did you and Annie talk that night in question?
Yeah, just when I asked if she was okay, she said yes and then quickly went away.
Did you see Annie and Sabrina alone together?
Yeah, Annie was helping Sabrina clean up a spill that Sabrina caused in the corner.
How many years have you been a bartender?
This is my 10th year.
What levels of drunk have you seen in that time?
Sometimes I see people go unfazed, some get a little tipsy, and quite a few get absolutely wasted.
How have you seen that affect people's language or thoughts?
Some are a bit friendlier, some are a bit more hostile, but usually they're more carefree and lackadaisical.
How many people have you served that said stupid things when they were drunk?
I get them all the time. I'd be surprised if I found someone that was drunk and didn't say something stupid.
Thank you. That's all, Your Honor.
That's. Anybody call your next witness? Staff?
The defense would like to call Turner's favor.
Turner Bentley?
Yeah, Turner Bentley.
And Mr. Bentley, please approach. Bailiff will swear you in.
Please remain standing, place your left hand on the Bible, and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? Yes. Please be seated.
Mr. Bentley? Ms. Hess?
Please state your name for the jury.
Turner Bentley.
What was your relationship with Sabrina Bently?
She was my sister.
What was your relationship with Annie Waz?
She worked as a maid in my house.
How long has Annie worked for you?
6 years.
What kind of employee was Annie? Was she good at her job or was she not?
She was an exceptional employee, and she would always do what anyone asked her to.
And in that time, has Annie ever expressed any hate towards Sabrina?
No.
Where were you on the night of December 31st, the night of the murder?
Just having a party at my house.
About what time did you go to bed that night?
2:30.
What amount of alcohol had you consumed that night, and when did you begin drinking?
I don't remember the exact number. I don't remember the exact stuff I drank. You could ask the bartender again. But I began in the morning when I woke up.
So if you began drinking in the morning and drank through the night, is it safe to say you consumed a large amount of alcohol?
Yeah.
Would it also be fair to say that you were over the legal limit and would have been considered drunk?
Well, we didn't breathalyze at the party, so I don't know if I was over the legal limit, but I was drunk.
Okay, so how drunk were you? Like, were you slurring words, not able to stand, or losing memory, or were you more tipsy?
I was slurring words, but I could dance and get to where I was going. And that, if I would put a number to it, I'd say an 8 out of 10 on the drunk scale.
Was there any kind of drugs that you also had in your system on the night of December 31st?
I don't. Oh, LSD.
What time did you take the drugs?
3 p.m. I think.
So you began drinking in the morning and continued drinking for 10 plus hours, and while drinking alcohol, you took LSD on top of it.
Yep, that is correct.
With the fact that you had alcohol along with LSD in your system, how well do you remember that night?
It was foggy.
Could you explain what you mean by the night being foggy?
I only remember bits and pieces of that night.
Are you aware that taking LSD while drinking alcohol can cause blackouts, self-harm, and increased risk of harming to others?
Mm-hmm.
So you were aware you were going to be putting yourself and potentially the other partygoers in harm's way if you mixed the alcohol and drugs together, and you did it anyways.
I was aware of the risks involved.
Are you currently employed?
Nope.
Then how are you obtaining money?
The money is from my parents currently.
Were you aware before that Sabrina was going to get the inheritance money?
I was aware.
And do you know what would happen to the money if Sabrina died?
The money would go to me.
With that said, how did you feel when you heard that your sister had been murdered?
It was a bummer.
So you were saying the death of your sister was only considered a bummer to you, yes or no?
Yep.
Mr. Bentley, how tall are you?
6'2".
Is it possible that instead of going to your room, you went to Sabrina's room and killed her?
No.
You just said the night was foggy due to your consumption of alcohol mixed with LSD. You are saying it is 100% not possible for you to have went to Sabrina's room, killed her, even when you do not remember the entire night.
I guess that could happen theoretically.
You finally have the opportunity and courage to get rid of your sister once and for all and receive a large sum of money, yes?
Not to stretch.
The fact that your sister's dead doesn't bother you one bit, does it? Your life is so much better now. You can continue to be a bum, not work, and live off your parents' fortune. You're in a better place now because Sabrina's dead, correct?
I'm in the same place that I was.
That is not a true statement. You have a large amount of more money now. She is passed. I wouldn't call that in the same place. More money makes your financial life easier. No further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution.
Approach, Your Honor.
May.
Mr. Bentley, were you shocked when you heard of the passing of your sister?
Yep,
Did your sister get along well with your employees?
I would say so.
Who did she not get along with?
She got along with everyone.
Are you violent in nature?
A little bit.
What do you mean by a little bit?
I throw things when I play Xbox.
Do you have a history of violence?
No.
Do you have a criminal record?
I've never been caught, so no.
Okay. If you were to come into a fairly large amount of money, would it be fair to say that your life would be better?
Not really.
Or not?
Because I already live an extravagant life.
But if you had more money, you could buy more drugs, more alcohol, right?
You can just, I guess, yeah, yes,
So your life would be better, in your opinion.
potentially.
Would it also be fair to say that other people could potentially benefit from you gaining money?
Maybe.
No further questions,
Defense, we call its next witness, Mr. Schaefer. You may take your seat.
Who'd like to prosecute?
Huh?
Who's prosecuting?
Mr. Schaefer, sit back down. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bentley, is there any part of you that would ever possibly kill your sister? better questions, Ryan.
Not even. State may call, no, not the state, the defense may call its next witness.
Your Honor, we wish to call Annie Waz.
Ms. Wazenkevich?
Please remain standing, place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated.
Ms. Moore, would you put your phone away, please, in my courtroom? We don't allow them in here. Thank you.
Can you please state your name and your occupation for the jury?
Annie Waz, and I am a maid for Turner Bently.
What is your relationship with Turner Bently?
He is my employer.
And what about your relationship with the deceased Sabrina Bently?
She was the sister of my employer.
How would you classify your relationship with Sabrina?
Mostly just acquaintance. She wasn't the nicest to me, but that's okay.
Do you think that Sabrina and Turner got along or not?
I've seen them fight multiple times, but siblings will be siblings.
What types of fights have you witnessed?
Just verbal fights, nothing physical.
Did you witness the argument at approximately midnight between Sabrina and Turner?
Yes.
Do you know the reason for that argument?
Sabrina kissed Jacob, and it made Turner mad.
What were you doing on December 31st?
I was working at the New Year's Eve party.
What tasks did you perform that night?
Cleaning up, restocking, just anything that would be made stuff.
Did you notice anything odd about Sabrina during the party?
Not really.
Did you notice if Sabrina was drinking or if anyone else was drinking excessively?
She was drinking, but pretty much everybody else was drinking. She wasn't blackout drunk, but she was just a little tipsy.
Did Sabrina ask you to give her insulin at any point during the night?
Yes.
Do you know what time that was?
She asked me to give her insulin at 12:30 a.m.
Do you know why she would ask you?
No, she just asked me to, and I do what she wants.
Would that have been normal for you to give Sabrina insulin?
I don't usually, but since she asked me to, I did.
Have you given insulin often, before?
No.
What method did you give the insulin to?
Syringe.
Was that the last time you saw Sabrina? Or in the morning?
Yes.
So we heard stated earlier that Sabrina died between the hours of 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. So where were you between those hours?
I was sleeping.
What time did you clock out?
1:30 a.m.
And where did you go after?
My house, which is the guest house at the back of the mansion.
And what time did you clock in the morning?
6:30 a.m.
So you were in the guest house between 1:30 and 6:30?
Yes.
Did you ever go into Sabrina's room after clocking in the morning?
Yes.
And why would that have been?
I went to deliver breakfast.
Why did you deliver breakfast? Because she asked, or out of kindness?
She told me to.
Is it usual for you to deliver breakfast to Sabrina in the morning?
Whenever she wanted me to, yeah.
How did you observe Sabrina in the morning? You went in there?
I went in and I gave her food on her bedside table. I opened the curtains. I said good morning and I left.
Do you remember if Sabrina was laying face down or face up on the bed you saw in the morning?
She was face down.
Do you have had any reason to kill Sabrina?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution? Sit.
Annie, how long have you been working for Turner?
6 years.
Would you say you were treated fairly by the Bently siblings?
Yes.
Where were you the night of December 31st, 2018 when the murder took place?
I was at the party working.
Were you working at the time of the party the entire time?
Yes.
What were your responsibilities?
Restocking, cleaning up any main things.
What locations did you have access to at Turner's home?
Every room.
When did the party start that night?
10 p.m.
Did you arrive prior to the party?
Yes, to set up.
What time did you arrive?
8.
What did you do during the party? Were you still working the whole time still?
Yes.
The entire time?
Yes.
Did you interact with all the people at the party?
Not really. Not in excess. Just, I said hello to everybody and that was pretty much the end of it.
When did you clean up the party or when did it get over?
1 a.m.
Did you drink at any point throughout the party?
I had 1 glass of wine.
When was it that you drank the wine?
At 10:30.
Have you ever drank alcohol excessively or done unprescribed drugs?
No.
Did you, Turner's maid, have a relationship with Turner?
I have a relationship with Turner, employer-employee relationship.
How was your relationship with Sabrina?
I didn't see her very often, but we weren't friends or anything.
So did you enter Sabrina's room on that night?
Yes.
The party? What time did you enter the room with Sabrina Bently?
At 12:30 to give her insulin.
Did you ever enter the room again?
Yes, in the morning to give her breakfast.
Did you enter the room any times after that?
Yes, when Bonnie found her and screamed, so I came to see what was wrong.
So saying that, you had to have entered the room in order to inject Sabrina with the insulin, correct?
Correct.
You had to step foot more than a few feet into the room, right?
Yes.
Why did you give Sabrina insulin?
She told me to.
How did she receive the insulin?
Syringe.
At what time did you give it to her?
12:30 a.m.
Are you aware that as a CNA, which you said on document that you were, you are not legally allowed to give medication to anyone?
No.
Therefore, you gave Sabrina prescribed medicine unlawfully, correct?
I guess so.
How much insulin did you give Sabrina?
1 bottle.
Do you know what the proper amount of insulin is for a person her size?
1 bottle is what she told me.
It doesn't matter what she told you. You injected the insulin, correct?
Correct.
The coroner's report says 5 times the prescribed dosage of insulin was in her body. That's correct.
Correct. She told me to give her 1 bottle, and I gave her 1 bottle.
Why did you give Sabrina more insulin than what she needed?
She told me to give her 1 bottle, so I gave her 1 bottle.
But you injected the insulin, correct?
Correct.
The coroner found 5 times the proper dosage, correct?
Correct. Anyone else could have given her extra insulin, I wouldn't know.
In the coroner's report, it states a blood test revealed 5 times the prescribed dosage. Then later states, this dose may be fatal, but evidence suggests this is not what killed Sabrina. Is there any reason for her to need 5 times the correct amount?
No.
Are you aware that with hypoglycemic shock, which is what happens when you're either given too much insulin or not enough, comes mental confusion and unresponsiveness?
Yes.
So theoretically, it'd be easier to strangle someone if they were unconscious. Is that correct?
Probably.
Yours and only your fingerprints were found on the syringe that injected 5 times the proper dosage of insulin into Sabrina, correct?
My fingerprints were on the syringe that injected 1 time the proper dosage.
The coroner's report says otherwise. Sabrina had 5 times the proper dosage, and the only person that injected her with that insulin was you. Is that correct?
At that time, yes.
So that was more than what she needed. Did anyone else enter the room of Sabrina Bently and go farther than just a few steps inside the door?
I don't know. Anyone could have.
If no one else entered the room, meaning there was no evidence left behind, it is safe to say that you were the only one in there.
Anyone could have entered. It was not like I stood guard there.
Your fingerprints were found on the glass. Your fingerprints were found on the insulin bottle. Your fingerprints were found on Sabrina's neck. Your DNA was found on Sabrina's neck. If you didn't kill Sabrina, then who did? If no one else was in the room and no DNA was found on her neck besides yours.
Anyone.
would common sense say if you're the only one in the room, proven by science and facts, that you were the murderer, especially if your DNA was found on the victim, Sabrina's neck, when she was strangled?
I did not kill Sabrina.
If you didn't, then who did, if no one else was in the room and no other DNA was found? Your fingerprints were on Sabrina's neck. Your DNA was on Sabrina's neck. Science says that you were the murderer. Wouldn't common sense say you were the person that strangled Sabrina, if science says so?
It could have been anyone.
No further questions?
The defense may call the next witness.
We would like to cross-examine.
You may.
Ms. Wadsworth, it was witnessed that you had helped Sabrina to her room, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, why exactly, what behavior was she exhibiting or showing that she would need help to get to her room?
She was a little drunk in it, just to make sure that she didn't fall and hit her head or anything. I just was there just in case she fell.
So on top of being drunk, is it possible that maybe someone, like you stated previously, that someone could have given her 4 times the amount of insulin, making her tired?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions.
No. How did you like help her to the room? Did you like do the old like ground put your arm around her, you know, help her to her room?
Yeah.
So you put your arm around her. So therefore your hand may have been touching her neck when you were helping her to her room.
I suppose so, yeah.
Okay, answer the question.
Ask your question. So usually when you help people, do you like grab them by the neck and like carry them to the room like this?
Not like that, no.
Hey.
Can I ask a question?
No further questions.
Mr. Trotter?
Are you on any drugs?
Right now?
No.
Yes.
Do you do LSD or anything?
What?
Do not. Let's do it. Answer the question, please, Ms. Wazakevich.
I remind you you're under oath.
Yeah, what was your question?
Are you on LSD, yes or no?
Not right now, no. No.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Wazakevich, you may take your seat.
You take your
Ms. Wazakevich. Defense may call their next witness. Defense team?
We rest, Your Honor.
Thank you. We will conclude our trial with our closing statements. We will go prosecution, defense, and then a rebuttal if the prosecution feels it's necessary. The prosecution state, we will begin with your closing statements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to
You have
approach
freedom
this,
to move around the courtroom as much as you want, Mr. Trotter. The floor is yours. Is your
Presentation should be coming in.
I like the pins, Charles.
quiet, please.
Swear me.
Quiet, please, Mr. Vonderbeck. One more remark, and you are out of my courtroom. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor, today the prosecution team along with myself have worked hard to prove that the defendant, Annie Waz, is guilty of murder beyond a reasonable doubt. Today the defense team tried to point you in a different direction with this case. They mainly focused on motive, as we, the prosecution, focused on facts. Facts prove guilt. Facts are found in science. Science can put her in the room. Science can prove how it was done. Now, do we want to go with motive that could be wrong or science that does not lie to you? If science says Annie was in the room, then Annie was in the room. If science says her finger was on the insulin ball, then it was on the insulin ball. If science says the DNA found in the room belongs to Annie, well, there's no one else to point the finger at but Annie. The DNA found on Sabrina's neck matches Annie, who also administered the insulin to Sabrina. 5 times the amount, if I may add. Annie, who is a certified CNA, should have known that 5 times a dose would render Sabrina as unresponsive. Now, I'm no doctor or CNA, but I can tell you, if I was in the room with Sabrina, I would have known better not to administer that much insulin into Sabrina. Was this an accident? No. It was truly criminal intent. She had intended to commit the crime. But why, you may ask? Why would Annie, the innocent-looking maid, do this heinous act against Sabrina? Well, Sabrina had not paid Annie for her services. Annie thought, oh, if I kill Sabrina, the spoiled rich girl is bound to inherit money from her parents, then maybe Turner will inherit it, and I'll get her raised.
Objection, I didn't know it sounded like.
But Annie was wrong. That reality did not come from Sabrina's death. The only thing that came from Sabrina's death was a trial that took up my time, that took up your time, that took up our time. And I ask you, the jury, to keep the following things in mind when you go to deliberate. The fingerprint found on the insulin ball, it matches Annie. Technical difficulties here.
Just press space.
You have to be clicked on the mouse. Click anywhere. Click anywhere and press.
No.
Right click.
Others should do this.
The fingerprint, as I said, it belongs to Annie. The strangulation marks, they match Annie. And the fact that she gave she made Sabrina OD, yeah, that was all Annie. And the DNA matches Annie. So who is guilty? Annie. Deliver a guilty verdict based on facts, not motive. Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
That's Tim.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, of course the forensics team found some of Annie's DNA in the room. She said it herself, she was in there 3 times. They found it on the syringe because she said she gave her the insulin, and she gave her the bottle because that's what she told her to, so of course they found DNA in it, and all the shades and stuff. But how come Bonnie didn't have any DNA in there? She said that she flipped her over, checked if she was alive, but where's the DNA in that? The forensics team must have screwed up somewhere, so there's that. And it's not crazy to say that the forensics team may have missed something by accident. They messed up by not taking pictures of the back of Sabrina's neck where she was flipped over on her. They didn't take pictures before that. And Annie also had absolutely no valid motive for the criminal record. The prosecution also stated that the defense, we just focused on the motive, but the fact is that she had no motive. Turner, on the other hand, has gone on record admitting planning out killing his own sister just for the money. He had multiple motives, like breaking Jacob Plocky's heart, or just to inherit all the money. Charles also stated that this was just a big waste of time, but I don't see it that way because Annie, an innocent woman, is fighting for her life, and it's your civic duty if you have any slight bit of doubt that you prove her innocent.
Objection, Your Honor, I did not say.
There is no objection to cross-examination.
Dang it.
Rebuttal, prosecution.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not trying Turner today, we are trying his maid, Annie. We are here because an innocent girl was murdered. All she wanted was a good New Year's party, but she ended up getting betrayed by the maid in her own house. The evidence is solid, the defense is not. There should be no doubt in anyone's mind that Annie Waz is guilty. We have her hair, her fingerprints, and the DNA in the room and on the body. She was the only person who did not drink. She was the only person who went into Sabrina's room not once, not twice, but 3 times. It is her word against the dead girl's.
Why would her brother kill her? Because they fought? Because she kissed her ex? Because she was getting money from her parents? Would you strangle your sibling for arguing with you? No, you would not. Something drove this young lady to the kill. What drove her is unknown. Is she mentally ill? Is she just a sick person who enjoys to kill? I am not a killer, so I cannot tell you what made her do this. The science will not lie to you, unlike Annie Waz and Kevich. The facts are very clear in this case, and the facts lead to Annie Waz and Kevich. That is all.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have now heard all of the evidence. You have received the court's charges, and you have heard the final arguments by both parties. It is now time in the trial where we hand the case over to you for deliberation and for you to return a verdict. The bailiff, Mr. Adler, will escort you to the jury room for deliberations. We'll take you to Mrs. Cleaver's. To give you some information, the first thing you need to do is select a jury foreman from the group of you. Typically, there is an alternate jury member where we dismiss them in case someone would get sick or not appear. We're not going to eliminate one of you today. We want all of you to be involved in the process. The verdict has to be unanimous. So delegate or select a jury foreman, and then from there, that jury foreman is going to lead the discussion of the members in there. There are 13 jury members. If you discuss and the vote is 8-5 one way, that's not unanimous. So then you have to discuss and try to move people one way or another. Again, it must be a unanimous verdict, and if you have any doubt whatsoever, you find her innocent. If you have no doubt at all, you find her guilty. Mr. Adler, you can escort the jury to the next room, and you can hand that over to them. When you come back, when you are done, jury foreman, hand this to the bailiff on your way back in. Have in this process. The first part is the jury that went back there and deliberated. What makes you eligible in business law class, please don't answer, but what makes you eligible to be a jury member? Noah? Yes, so once you register to vote, you put your name in a pool. Any other way? Non-business law. How did you guys get to school today? Driver's license. So when you are a registered voter and you have a driver's license, they put you in a prospective pool, and they randomly, periodically will pull you from that, and then you are a potential jury member. Can you get out of jury duty? Yes. What would be examples of reasons why you could get out of jury duty? Noah?
Too old.
Yes, there is an age. I don't remember what it is, but at a certain age, you can say, I'm too old. I don't want to be in here anymore. Through the questioning and answering of the jury members, you could get excused because of your answers. If it was a crime that dealt, or something that dealt with someone of another race, if you, of course, say that you don't like people of brown color, black color, that probably would get you excluded. If it deals with police and you have people that are in the military, that would exclude you also. Sabrina, did you have?
I have a question.
Yes.
There was a point in this when Hayden was questioning Annie. Would that be like, there were things she was saying that could have been like leading the witness?
Yes.
I was sitting here and I was like,
yes.
Somebody said.
Okay. So if we did leading the witness, I would have to take half of my case. We struggled with asking questions without giving them the answers. Yes, it wasn't just that part. We put words in their mouths a lot throughout the whole entire. We have to ask open-ended questions, and we did not. So you are correct. At many different times we said leading.
And I was like, there was nothing ever said, and I was sitting here.
One of the attorneys in front asked, and I told them no.
Oh.
No, he did ask, but we would have had to do that throughout the entire case, because when you ask questions, you can't give them the answer. You can say, where were you on December 31st? That's a good question. You can't say, were you at the party on December 31st? Because you gave them the answer, is what you did.
But like,
And you're dead,
the
so.
entire story.
I know.
Yeah.
She's your dead body.
Also here, if you are in charge of, like if you're a mom, a stay-at-home mom, and you get charged, or not charged, but if you get chosen for jury duty, that would be a reason that they would excuse you from it. Those of you that are seniors that go off to college, Blocky, when you go off to college and you're at UNL or Shadron or Peru and they call you to be a jury member here in Hastings, the way that I understand it, you can get excluded from that. But I was just talking to Sam Clommer a few weeks ago, and he's at Shadron, and he got his name called for a prospective jury member, and he said he was not excluded from the jury pool. Although I think if he communicated that to them, they probably wouldn't relieve him from that. Do you get paid to be a jury member?
Not a whole lot.
No. It's around $35 for the day, per day. You may get mileage too, depending on where you live, because most of the time you get called to county. You could get called, Alex, to federal court, which is in Lincoln, so you could get mileage plus the $35. Here at Adams Central, if we're called as a jury member during school time, you have to give the money to the school use it for part of your sub. You still get paid, but you don't get to keep that money, so it's not like an extra bonus. That's a part of it. Questions that you might have?
Is that them?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
No, you just throw it in like, so you put your arm around her, right? You make it touch me.
Okay.
Already done.
Jury, you would go take your seat. We also have what actually happened, so we will show you if the jury got it correct or not.
My adrenaline works.
I would say that less than 10 minutes is a little unusual for a jury to come back with a verdict. You know as well as I know there are certain individuals that when they are a jury member that it's very difficult to change their minds. This is play. This is not real. But if this was real, these 12 or 13 people over there have a person's life in their hands. And actually having someone else's life in your hands, I think you look at it a little bit differently. If you really think that this person is guilty, then you are putting this person in jail for up to 20 years. Are you willing and able to make that decision? Do you have any doubt whatsoever? When it becomes real, the decision making becomes a little bit more serious for some people. If it's just a classroom, it doesn't matter. I'll go with you whatever I want, whatever everybody else was. But that will actually happen too, because if you don't come up with a verdict, you're going to come back the next day. And they'll continue to make you stay in there until you have a unanimous verdict. And some people will just eventually give up because they want to go home. They don't want to continue to do this. But the jury foreman was? Okay, and you came up with a unanimous verdict?
Not guilty.
Okay.
Let's go! Let me ask, when you went in there, did you do an initial vote?
Yeah, everybody was not guilty from the start.
All not guilty.
Yeah.
What were the reasons behind not guilty?
Too many holes. Yeah.
Give me the holes.
The prosecution didn't even ask about Annie's prescription drugs, so they didn't exactly have like anything clear for Annie either.
We never said anything. That was
Okay,
never
well,
something
that's
we
just-
wanted.
Yeah, she's on Prozac.
Yeah, you said she's on Prozac. I never said somebody said she was.
Hey, so you said there's, what were they looking at? Michael, what was the hole?
DeAndre Shipman, please come to
What's
the
that?
office. DeAndre Shipman.
Micah?
Well, women tend to have smaller hands anyway, and if they said they couldn't pick up Bonnie's prints because she was clearly in the room, because she flipped her over, she could have strangled her because girls tend to have smaller hands. So
That was a bad job on, because Bonnie never did flip her over. We have no idea. Bonnie said on her testimony, she goes, I never touched her.
What? She did?
Yeah, and I just added
I have it
all that.
last year on the community. You said it this year, you did not say it last year.
No, I don't even remember being interviewed last year, so.
Yeah, you did not flip her over. You said I never touched her.
Okay.
So that was a bad job in here. Okay, you're gonna have something?
Oh,
Annie said she went home from work at like, what was it, 1:30? Yeah, 1:30.
And the autopsy said she died at between 3 and 5.
So there was some of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that means Annie had to come back.
There's a question too, like, since it's a mansion, you got security too, couldn't you see if Annie was?
Turner's broke.
It's a mansion, it's a mansion though.
It's like this is where this is where I have some issues, but Gabe, go ahead.
Why wasn't Bonnie even, like, why wasn't she brought to the stand?
Thank you.
I was waiting for
She
she
never,
the whole time.
yeah, that was.
Yeah,
weird.
we tried
She
to
tried to
add
Bonnie's
it in,
parents.
so it's too
That was
bad.
kind of weird.
So why wasn't she brought to the stand?
Because originally she just stepped foot in the room.
Yeah, like.
She stepped foot and then saw she was dead and left. But then when Brooke added, she flipped her over. I was like, oh god, who's that? So
Because what Brooke said was actually incorrect.
What? Chet told me that.
It is incorrect.
Yeah, it was in the coroner's report that Chet wrote.
In the coroner's report you wrote down, you did not flip, it was not flipped over.
Chet wrote
In the
that.
coroner's report that you wrote,
No, Mr.
you didn't go, you didn't hammer on it.
Mr. Touchman wrote this one.
The coroner's report that Brooke Becker's name was on it.
Yeah, that Chet wrote for this class.
Quiet, please. Micah.
You said if we were going to convict, there had to be no doubt, but there was a lot of doubt.
Yeah. Okay. Some of the things is that what are you supposed to look at? Facts and facts only. Okay? And I think at different times, and that's fine, you found her innocent, so we'll find out if you're correct or not. But I think at different times you were putting too much weight. Well, why did they call Bonnie into it? That's irrelevant, whether they did or did not. Because the facts are what you look at. That could
Ireland
lead you to
Samuelson,
think
Nathan Meath, Michaela Samuelson, and Macy File, please come to the office.
that she did or did not do it on that. But the facts are technically what you're supposed to look at only. We already know from the business law class, do jury members look at facts only? No. Because human beings use emotions, they use their rations, they put their own thoughts and feelings into it, and that's how they come up with their decisions when they're doing it. Micah?
Well, Andy kind of did go all off of with the Bonnie thing. Like, they said in the coroner's report that they couldn't find her fingerprints, even though they did flip her over. And that there was a possibility that there could have just not been fingerprints because the oils weren't enough.
Okay, so, right, but one team did do this, right? You ready? I'm Bonnie.
Takes one step in the door.
Am I in the room?
Yep.
Am I gonna have anything in the room if I just do this?
Can I say something?
That was never brought up.
Bonnie has to defend herself.
Yeah, can I defend myself?
I understand that, I'm the judge.
Okay, you will see. I'm really just kind of confused because, like, I don't remember being interviewed last year. I'm sure I was, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, cool. I don't. But in the video, you will see that I was, and obviously we don't have, the video isn't like, we didn't have that before, but in the video, I am like sitting right next to Sabrina's bed. So like.
But when we do the interview,
Okay, I don't remember. I don't remember that. I'm
you
sure
said
it
you went
happened.
into the room, but you didn't say
Okay.
how far you went. You
Well,
just
all we did was
So then I'm gonna say
we
one
know
step in
that this year when everything was reset up for them to come find everything, it was not 100% true to the video that we did last year. So that also varied.
Not guilty.
Okay, but if I said I
Okay, we will. Just to go to show you, there is no script. These people have to come up and they have to look at the evidence, and it's not like it speaks or it talks to them. Yes, there are times where the attorneys do a great job for their clients, and there are times that attorneys do a poor job for their clients. Mr. Chechla has made this comment to me many times that a good attorney can find you guilty, and a good attorney can find you innocent too, depending on it. And sometimes your attorneys are worth their money, Mr. Schlechter.
And I thought that was the turning point was, I thought there's great testimony by the forensic guy. Give me your first name. Cole. By Cole. But Stowe kept asking the same question until he got a different answer. So he got you to somehow misspoke and say that you spent limited resources on it. And then he made you basically repeat that you said that. Which made, if I'm on the jury, I'd probably think Annie's guilty, at least 95% guilty. But I'm like, dang, did they put together enough evidence? And you probably did have enough facts, but it sounded bad. And I thought Stowe kind of turned it on that.
It would have been worse for us if he kept asking the rest of the questions. Way worse.
Yeah. In the original draft, he was getting rid of the new one because he said they decided to go for getting the investigation over with.
But I thought that was a good job. That's to your point.
I don't know how they thought going into this, but me personally, I thought coming into it based off of what they had, I thought the prosecution would win.
Did you really?
I did think the prosecution
I
would
did.
win.
I thought so.
We'll find out here if they're correct or not. No, jury, did you get it right?
Are you ready? Turner, you can't leave.
Turner, you gotta stay, buddy.
Alright, so last year, in May, we had to film all of this, so we kind of had our story straight. And I think with the body being rolled over, so I'm the one that had to do the coroner's report, it just didn't get done, so it fell on me. And maybe that didn't happen, but I'm pretty sure that was in the original story, and maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, it was definitely not on me for that one.
Yep, and I'll
just so you all know.
Yep. So, yeah, when you make up stories, it's tough to keep everything straight. So as you guys saw,
What I use every year is the defense team. I always try to use the forensics class that does a crappy job. I try to say they did a crappy job here, they did a crappy job here, because that's part of it. If the forensic team doesn't do a good job of analyzing the material, you can get your client off because they screw up. And some years it's easier than some years it's not. How many years ago was it that I said this would have never gone to trial? You know why? Because the forensic team did a horrible job. There's no way that you would have taken this person to court. There's no way. You didn't have enough evidence to even think that the person did it. But we went through the trial anyway.
Yep. All right. Well, let's see what happens.
I don't either. Okay.
I don't think the sound.
A little louder. We had to replace Noah with Nolan. That's Noah Sass, the bartender.
Oh, you got it from the one act closet. Yeah.
He's holding.
Hello.
Hey, Hayden.
Thanks. Back over there. Okay.
Mariah Carey.
That's right there.
Yeah, we're just only watching New Year's Eve stuff. Oh my god.
What are you doing? Why would you cook the plates after the food? Well, we can move it. Seriously, get to it. This party is going to start soon. You guys are pathetic. Oh my goodness. And then you're using cups for salsa? Yeah. That actually. Who are you?
What's wrong? Always.
Yeah, quit.
I know.
Bonnie, look, it's you. Hello.
This is what I was
Wow.
Injected in my bloodstream. I said that.
Using the right better space. What kind of drink you make?
We drink some more.
That's called suicide. Where's our Christmas lights? Oh, here we go. Oh, God. Here we go, Jacob. It's better.
You're asking me about that. Do you not see it? You act like that's it every day. No, really. No. Seriously. Well, you know what? I'm not gonna
Oh, yeah, I know.
When you get drunk, you get southern. Yeah. Turn it over to Southern. It's a family thing. Yeah. Yeah. Is he still here?
I honestly don't understand why turning like in
I don't know. What?
all the time. He's just
What? Wait, why am I saying what?
I mean, everyone's probably jealous.
Oh!
I'm a princess.
There should be 2 minutes.
Yes. On your way out, will you make sure that you tell the maid to bring you my medication? Yeah.
Why did you? My hair was so short.
Are you gonna go any faster? I won't have all night. Do you even know what you're doing? Yes, I'm certified.
You put it in
You don't put it somewhere.
No.
I don't actually know what I'm doing.
Oh, mine could actually remember real quick. I've lost 30 minutes. Here we go. Where's Corey?
Thank you.
Art. She's in art. Oh, okay.
I should overdose. Sabrina.
There was no
Okay.
Sounds good. There you go.
Are you like trying your best to get this or not?
Or no.
Oh wow.
It's 5 o'clock. I'm gonna go get some sleep. Same time.
Oh, you're like that. Here we go. I gotta go.
Why did I zoom in on the turtle? What happened to the turtle?
It died.
They mentioned the evidence.
Keep going.
Oh god.
Oh no.
Here's my application.
Oh no.
Here's my body.
This is LA lady.
This I should be.
Oh my gosh, I think she's dead.
I know, right?
Please. 911.